I pay $7.99 a month for my blue check on Twitter. And that $7.99 a month gives me the security of knowing that my identity is protected and that I am verifiably an asshole. Ah, yes. Welcome to another episode of A Very Odd Caster. And yes, Twitter and its blue checks are in the news once again. Now, I don't use Twitter much. I've had to use it professionally over the years, but I don't get on there very often. So this blue check stuff, it's kind of like, whatever, right? But again, the blue check is supposed to verify that it's really you. And of course, the new owner of Twitter, one Elon Musk, has decided to charge about $8 a month, $7.99 to be exact, for people to get that blue check next to their handle or whatever the hell. And that verifies that they are who they are. They're not impersonating someone. Okay. And so this caused a big uproar when he first announced it, which was many months ago. Everyone went crazy. And I get it, because it's essentially saying you're paying for free speech, because of course the whole reason Elon got into this business was to protect and preserve and promote free speech. And I'm for that, of course. But then you turn around and charge people $8 a month to express that free speech, and it isn't so free, is it? So there's a lot of outrage, particularly on the celebrity circuit. And of course that's comical, because boy, they're going to miss that $8 a month, aren't they? LeBron James, making a big scene over that. Of course, we in Cleveland have heard plenty of stories about LeBron and his entourage over the years, tipping in the single digits when they go to a meal, running up thousands of dollars of a tab and then some 8% tip or 12% or whatever. It's probably exaggerated, but there is the rep that LeBron did not get to be a billionaire just by his earnings. It's also by his savings. So anyhow, but the latest twist and turn on this Twitter blue check thing is that Elon has decided that he wants celebrities' voices on Twitter, because it draws traffic and he finds them interesting or outrageous or whatever. So Elon decided to pony up $24 a month and pay for the blue check marks of LeBron James, Stephen King, the horror writer, and none other than Captain Kirk himself, William Shatner. Thanks, Elon. So he values those folks to the point where he, reached into his pocket and pulled out $24 and paid for their monthly blue checks just to keep them on Twitter. And of course, that takes it beyond it not being free speech. It takes it into elitism, which is like, you're so interesting, I'm going to pay for you. Gee, that's all LeBron needs, right? Is a little ego stroke. And Shatner, Elon, thank you for the $8. I'll put it to good use when I get on Twitter tomorrow morning while I'm sitting on the can. Thank you. Every Thursday. Okay. No more impressions are imminent. All right, so I'm going to have to weigh in on the Bud Light thing. But first, a drink of water. Nice cool water. Tastes like a Bud Light. All right, so this thing just keeps going on and on, right? I don't know. Again, if I care so little about the product that I can't care about the issue, right? Do I think it was a stupid marketing idea to go and alienate the vast majority of your customer base? Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? You know, it's like saying, okay, we sell vegetarian foods and 100% of our market are vegetarians. But we decided, you know what? We're going to branch off and diversify into the meat market. So we're going to throw in a few steaks for the hell of it. It makes about that much sense. You know, it's stupid as a business decision. It's stupid as a marketing thing. It's just stupid. But that's my only criticism. I don't really care, you know. I mean, if there is some reason other than just to say, hey, we're hip, we're with it, we're virtue signaling, you know, there's other ways to do that, right? There are other ways to do that. I don't know. But I just don't care. I don't even know who Dylan Mulvaney is, really. I never heard of her before all this, you know? I also get into that, what's so special about somebody flipping around and, you know, jumping on the other side of the road, so to speak. And I kind of hate to break it to Dylan. I'm sure she got a good deal out of this, but it's pretty much short-lived, obviously. And besides, I mean, RuPaul's got that market covered, doesn't she? Right? RuPaul's been around forever. I mean, you can only have so many unique drag queens, right? I mean, what are you gonna fuss over? The lipstick they wear? I don't think so. Anyhow, so I just, you know, I start with the fact that I've never drank Bud Light in my life unless I'm desperate, right? I mean, if you want a cheap beer that tastes great, look no further than Natural Light. Not only is Natural Light good and cheap, it makes you go to the bathroom just as much as Bud Light. So anyhow, yeah, it's much ado about nothing. You know, Kid Rock getting out there and firing away at cases of Bud Light. I think that's a bit much, kid. I mean, save your ammo, dude. The government's coming, dude. Save your ammo. I don't know. I just, you know, it's the whole thing's stupid. And both sides annoy me. You know, Kid Rock emptying his chamber on a bunch of beer bottles. Really? You know, on one side. The other side, oh, what's wrong with expanding their market? That's not what you're saying. You're saying, I'm for the trans population, and that's fine. Just say it. You know, you're not expanding any market, right, with that. I think that was bait. to get the transphobic folks to come out and scream. And it worked, right? And there's no need for it. You know, they're not going to sell any more Bud Light than they did before by having Dylan Mulvaney on their can, any more than they would sell anymore if they put me in a dress and put me on the can. And so this has all gotten a little over the top on both sides of the equation, right? And, you know, it's kind of a turnoff, the whole thing. You know, I'm not going to sit there, just because I think it's a stupid marketing thing, I'm not going to sit there and bash transgenders, especially since once upon a time, I too wore a dress for special occasions.
Madge, my hands, they're so chapped and dry.
Sharon, come here. Sit down.
I know what trouble with my combs. Tell me, how have you been?
Well, I just had my monthly urinalysis. You know, you're soaking in it.
Soaking in it?
Relax, Sharon. It's better than dishwashing liquid.
And Anheuser-Busch is not the only corporation having business problems. Did you know that Bed Bath & Beyond has basically filed for bankruptcy due to their business going bad? And then I came across this story about a new kind of surgery called leg lengthening surgery. Okay. And this article, I just pulled a few paragraphs out, and I don't have the source, but it doesn't stop the actual media. So why should it stop me, right? Okay. So at 5'7", Alex considered himself short. The 26-year-old, who asked that his real name not be used to maintain his privacy, said he was sick of insults and jeering comments about his height. Shorter men, he said, routinely get spoken down to just because of this trait that they can't control. So last January, Alex got a leg lengthening surgery to increase his height to 5'10". My goal was never to be tall. It's to be in a place where no one comments on my height, said Alex, who asked that his real name not be used to maintain his privacy. So leg lengthening is an intense and expensive surgery, but one that has become more and more popular and accepted in the last 5 years, according to the media. It's the first time I've heard of it, right? The surgery to lengthen Alex's legs was such a success that apparently now Alex is considering surgery to lengthen his middle leg. And just last week, Alex had his first appointment at the Leg Lengthening Institute with the head of urology, Dr. Rick Moranis. Elsewhere in the news. Now, the other night, northern lights were apparently visible to people in 30 states in the U.S. 30 states, 60% of the country were able to catch these northern lights. And depending on the weather going on in those particular areas. But that's a major deal. I saw a graph on the line, the visibility line or whatever, was like right down the middle of the country pretty much. So that's a lot of people, you know, standing there waiting for the lights. No word on whether Freebird was played as an encore. Speaking of birds, I feel like this is deja vu all over again. An American Airlines flight headed to Phoenix last Sunday morning had to return to Ohio's John Glenn Columbus International Airport because a bird strike disabled an engine. So a post-strike engine fire was captured on a cell phone video that has been verified by NBC News. Wait, NBC News actually verified something before reporting it? Wow, must have been those northern lights. Caused some radiation poisoning or something. So takeoff was scheduled for 7:43 a.m., according to Tracker Flight Aware. And the bird strike happened roughly at 8 a.m., the Federal Aviation Administration said in a statement. The aircraft turned back to the airport shortly afterward and landed safely. God. Landed safely. It says safety. Why do we bother with English anymore, folks? You know, we've got artificial intelligence, right? We've got GPS, so we're out in our cars driving 1 mile down the road to 7-Eleven. At the light, turn right, and then turn an immediate left. Why the hell do we have to study English at all when one of the biggest media outlets in the world can't even spell the word safely correctly? So once again, you know, a bird incident up in the sky. You might recall that just last week, I was talking about a bird incident in the friendly skies. In fact, I'll play that for you right now. But first, I have to change back into that shirt. Speaking of birds, so a very close acquaintance of mine, who shall remain nameless to protect her identity, was on a plane recently, headed to the sunny state of Florida to begin a week vacation basking in the sun, to kick off spring, the spring season. And her plane took off, and about a half hour on the way to Florida, they had to turn around and go back to DC, where she flew out of. And the reason was because a flock of birds crashed into the cockpit windshield, splattering blood all over the windshield and screwing up the plane's radar, most importantly. And so pilot had to turn the plane around, head on back to the airport, and they were grounded for hours while they fixed the issue. They did eventually get back up in the air and get on down to Florida. But I had told my acquaintance prior to booking that flight, I said, whatever you do, don't fly Air Fabio. Every Thursday I'll be here. Of course, I could talk about Fabio all day, but I won't. Well, NBC also was in the business news this past week. NBC Universal Chief Executive Jeff Shell is apparently stepping down after an investigation was launched into a complaint of inappropriate conduct. Colleagues are not surprised by the news. They say that he's been a shell of his former self lately. You know, I kind of like that shirt. Now, is it just me, or are weddings becoming more and more over the top? Are they becoming more narcissistic than in the past? Now, I don't know. I really don't know. I've never been like a wedding planner or a wedding observer. Only the really weird weddings are the ones that stick out in my mind. I've been to dozens of them, but there's only a handful that I recall that, you know, really stuck out in my mind. And that leads me to another stupid ass thing from my childhood. So when I was 10 or 11, turning 11, I think I was in 5th grade, my oldest cousin, I think it was my oldest cousin, close to my oldest cousin, got married. It was the first cousin to get married. And the whole family was there. And I had 2 other cousins, same age, 11 years old, basically. And we had a great time and everything. And we were running around like little lunatics. And there were 2 punch bowls at the reception that had this yellow looking punch. And one punch bowl was, I guess, juice, sort of a orange mango concoction. I don't know what it was. For the kids, right? The other punch bowl looked almost identical, except that had champagne in it. So, of course, what did us 11-year-olds get into? The champagne, of course. Once we discovered that grown-up bowl over here and kiddie bowl over here, we quickly figured out that, hey, there's booze over here. Next thing you know, we had 3 11-year-olds running around drunk. Yes, indeed. A few years later, when I was 14, I was on vacation with one of my cousins the same age. And we came across the same situation. We were out at this pizza joint, and there were multiple pitchers floating around. And there were pitchers of Coke or Pepsi, I can't remember which, the dark stuff. And then there were pitchers of dark beer. Same thing transpired. Me and my cousin figured that out, and we started pouring ourselves dark German beer. So, parents, there's a lesson in this. Keep an eye on those kids and the punch bowl and the pitchers. And that is another stupid ass thing from my childhood. So anyhow, there's only a few weddings that I've been to that I actually kind of remember anything about. They all kind of blend together, really. But there was one that I'll never forget. I was living down in the state of Georgia, and I was dating a Georgia peach at that time. Not an actual peach, but you know, that's what they call a pretty Georgia girl. Anyway, so this young lady invited me to her cousin's wedding. I think it was her cousin's wedding. That part I don't remember. And it was out in the boonies, well outside of Atlanta. And it was in this old wooden church out in the middle of nowhere. I really can't remember what town it was in. It looked like it was the only building in town that Sherman had spared during his march to the sea. So I went to this wedding with my girlfriend, and it was a very hollow sounding church. It was all wood. The floors were all wood, and there's no carpet at all. None. And so every time he took a step, it was like echoey, you know. And it was very kind of rural Southern, if you will. And me being a Ohioan was like, what the hell is this? So we're sitting there, and I was probably in my mid-20s. I was at this age when weddings made me very nervous because I didn't want to get married, you know. And everybody I went out with, I sort of was like paranoid. She wants to marry me. Probably not. And by the way, they're lucky they avoided that. But at this particular wedding, you know, things were getting started, and there was a photographer there. Actually, it was a photographer and his assistant. And the photographer was this guy, kind of hippie looking, real long hair, mustache and beard. He's dressed, you know, in a, I don't know if it wasn't a tux, but it was like a white shirt and a black tie and slacks. You know, he was trying to look all churchy, but of course he looked like, you know, he just came over from Woodstock. And then there was his assistant, who was an albino. Yep, that's right. She was a young girl, probably late teens, early 20s. So was he, by the way. And she was an albino. And she was dressed in black. So she had this blonde hair. And she was an albino, white, and dressed in black. Nice contrast, if you will. And I'm just like, I was fighting back the giggles the whole time, not because of her, but a lot of the people that came in, the ladies with these big hats on, and the fans, you know, it's like, it's not even hot in there. It's like, you know, I'm just like, what time warp did I just walk into, right? I was really having trouble with the giggles, you know. Those situations make me giggle. And so I'm sitting there, and the service begins, and I can't remember what was happening in the service, but at one point, all of a sudden, the dude's tripod fell over. And you heard it sort of, and because of the echo, it was just this loud, it sounded like a bomb went off. And I'm sitting in the back, and all these people with the hats and everything like turn around slowly. And I'm like, oh, jeez. So I turn around to see what went down, and just on cue, just to prove that chivalry is not dead, the dude photographer like makes a beeline for the door, like heads out the back. I don't know what his plan was. I guess he was going to address the situation, but he didn't pick up the equipment, and he leaves the poor albino girl standing there smiling, embarrassed. And that was the end for me. I just started cracking up. I mean, it was just, visually it was so damn weird. I was like, I gotta get the hell out of this place. So yeah, weddings on a few occasions are memorable, and almost always for the wrong reason. I just can't make my mind up. Well, that's all for me now. I'm gonna go change my shirt yet again. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write to veryoddcaster@gmail.com. That's veryoddcaster@gmail.com. We will see you next time, kids.